Hello, it's Monday, September the 7th. Happy Labor Day. Hope you are all taking a moment to pause from your labors, those of you who still have labors, and hopefully you're staying relatively safe this holiday season, not going out too much and not exposing yourself unnecessarily. We are still staying safer at home, and here we are continuing our weekly Bible series, looking at the lessons for the upcoming Sunday. Now looking at the lessons for the upcoming Sunday of the 15th Sunday, after Pentecost, September 13th, 2020. And our first reading for today comes from the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis. And I will read the introduction for you first, then the actual reading of the day, and share some of my reflections. Genesis 50, verses 15 through 21. After Jacob's death, the brothers of Joseph begged for forgiveness for the crime they had done against him. "You intended to do me harm," Joseph said, "but God used this as an opportunity to do good and save many lives." Realizing that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers said, "What if Joseph still bears a grudge against us and pays us back in full for all the wrong that we did to him?" So they approached Joseph, saying, "Your father gave this instruction before he died. Say to Joseph, 'I beg you, forgive the crime of your brothers and the wrong they did in harming you. Now, therefore, please forgive the crime of the servants of the God of your father.' Joseph wept when they spoke to him. Then his brothers also wept, fell down before him, and said, 'We are here as your slaves.' Joseph said to them, 'Do not be afraid. Am I in the place of God? Even though you intended to do harm to me, God intended it for good, in order to preserve a numerous people, as he is doing today. So have no fear. I myself will provide for you and your little ones.' In this way, he reassured them, speaking kindly to them." Just in case you don't know the story of Joseph and his brothers, they have a long history of dysfunction, deception, and treachery, beginning all the way back in Genesis chapter 37, and today we're in Genesis chapter 50, so many, many years. And this, somewhat directly and somewhat indirectly, includes their father Jacob, who consequently was known as the trickster long before he married and had children. Yesterday, Sunday, the 14th Sunday after Pentecost, in the gospel reading and the message, we learned about Jesus' 4-step program for reconciliation between God's people. In the chapters prior to today's Old Testament reading, Joseph and his brothers seem to be well along the road of reconciliation and forgiveness. Following Jacob's death, the brothers appear to have found kind of a bump in that road, or a pothole maybe. Trust. Trust was apparently fragile, and without Jacob, the brothers were afraid they could no longer trust Joseph. Well, granted, their trust issues were not unfounded. Joseph had done some pretty sneaky things to the brothers too, including holding one hostage and framing another for stealing. Joseph is a powerful man in the Egyptian empire, and one word from him, all of the brothers would have spent the rest of their lives in prison. We have an advantage. We're outside observers as we're reading through the story of Joseph and his brothers. And we know there is plenty of blame to go around for the entire family, including Jacob. Sometimes within a group of siblings, It is one or both of the parents that are the glue that holds the family together. And once the parents are no longer around and the siblings have lost that common denominator, even when there is not open conflict, there may be a slow and subtle parting of ways. In today's story, what may have seemed like a reconciliation between Joseph and his brothers turns out to have been kind of a tenuous coexistence. And sometimes other sibling groups, even today, simply have a tenuous coexistence without that parental figure being present. Ever since Joseph rose to the administrator over the government supply of grain in Egypt, Joseph has had all the official power in the family story. As the one who is wronged, Joseph also has all of the interpersonal power, the power to forgive or not forgive. These two sides of Joseph's power, the personal and the political, come together in this story. And I think Joseph makes an astounding revelation to his brothers, one I think we need to take to heart. Joseph says, "Do not be afraid. Am I in the place of God? Even though you intended to do me harm, God intended it for good, in order to preserve a numerous people, as he is doing today." Am I in the place of God? I think that question is important for all of us, every single one of us, to consider at any time we want to hold someone else accountable for their actions. Am I in the place of God? And the simple answer for me, and frankly all of you too, is no. Am I in the place of God? No. There is no guarantee that we will never have problems in this life. Joseph had more than his fair share. There is no guarantee that we will never have problems within our families. Joseph had his fair share. There was roughly 40 years from the time that Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery until Jacob's death, as we read about in today's Old Testament reading. 40 years. Most of that time for Joseph, most of those were very, very hard years. Years of slavery and years of wrongful imprisonment. What his brothers had done to him, it's too simple to call it a crime. It's just too simple to call it wrong. Yet in today's reading, Joseph stands at a virtual fork in the road, if you will. He has the opportunity to take revenge on his brothers without having to worry about how Jacob is going to react now, his father, or he can forgive his brothers and make sure that they all benefit from the providence that God has shown Joseph. We include these stories in our Sunday readings in part to teach us that God is faithful and his faithfulness is everlasting, despite sometimes when outward circumstances cause us to doubt. Joseph's declaration that God intended it for good reminds us that the stories of the biblical families are not just nice Sunday snippets of family drama. They're part of a long and ongoing story of God's relationship with Israel, the chosen ones, if you will, for blessings, and in whom all the families of the earth will be blessed, including ours. Thank you for joining me this day. Again, I hope you have a wonderful holiday for however you are spending it. And please join me again tomorrow as we continue this journey along toward the 15th Sunday after Pentecost, September 13, 2020. Take care and God bless.